was a cold, dark night, and I was alone in the center of the city, surrounded by tall buildings that appeared to scrape the sky. The pavement was covered in long, eerie shadows generated by the streetlight's brightness. It was an unusually calm day in the city after my late-night work shift. My steps resounded in the quiet as I strolled along the empty streets. There was a palpable tension in the air, as though the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. The occasional sound of distant sirens and rustling leaves heightened the spooky atmosphere. I had no idea that this night would turn into a terrifying story that would follow me around for the rest of my life. In an attempt to get to my flat sooner, I chose to take a detour through a dimly lighted alley. Tall brick walls bordered the small route, and they appeared to get closer to me as I moved. Despite feeling uneasy, I accelerated my speed. The tiniest whisper in the air, like a ghostly breath brushing the back of my neck, was what I heard at that moment. My heart was thumping in my chest as I whirled around. The alley behind me was deserted, but the murmur continued, growing clearer and louder. It whispered, "Help me," in a frantic tone that chilled my spine. My senses were taken in by the voice, which appeared to emanate from the shadows themselves. Ignoring the terrible feeling in my stomach, I hoped to move past the unusual encounter and went down the lane. Still, the murmurs continued, taking on the form of syllables that echoed my name. "John," they called, getting more frantic with each call. Breathing hard, I picked up the pace, the eerie murmurs overpowering the sound of my own footfall. I came out of the alley into a tiny park tucked in between the tall structures. Normally bustling throughout the day, the park was suddenly enveloped in darkness, with its playground strangely quiet. The murmurs persisted in trailing me, threading between the tree limbs like ghosts. I was always aware that someone was watching me. An ancient fountain, its water jets turned off for the evening, stood as the focal point of the park. The murmurs intensified as I got closer, blending into a disconcerting chorus. There was something strange about the air surrounding me. Abruptly, an unseen force caused the water in the fountain to ripple instead of the breeze. A black figure emerged from the shadows, standing next to the fountain. I could see no features and panic shot through me. When the person turned to face me, I briefly glimpsed eyes that radiated an unusual light. The murmurs combined to form an eerie voice that said words that chilled my blood. "John, find the key. Break the curse." The apparition abruptly disappeared, leaving me by myself in the park with an uncomfortable quiet in lieu of the whispering. My shoulders began to ache from the encounter, and I was driven to solve the puzzle that had just been placed before me. Which key? Which curse? I started looking for answers, driven by a mix of curiosity and anxiety. As I dug into the city's obscure past by going through its archives, days grew into nights. That's when I came into a narrative that made me shudder. The account of a long-lost mansion that originally stood where the park is now spread out. The home had a troubled past and was once held by a wealthy family in the early 20th century. There were stories of a curse on the family, a curse resulting from an unlawful agreement with the otherworldly. The mysteries of the curse were lost when the home mysteriously burned to the ground. The sounds seemed to be the echoes of the tortured souls that had been left behind. I set out to find the family's descendants, determined to find the truth. The trail led me to the only remaining member of the unfortunate lineage, an elderly woman living on the outskirts of the city. When she talked about the curse that lurked in the shadows, her aged eyes were filled with haunting insight. And the remnants of the mansion contained the key. She growled, "If you locate it, the curse that keeps the restless spirits bound can be broken." Equipped with this acquired understanding, I set out on a treacherous expedition toward the center of the park, the location of the former mansion. Beneath the earth and ages, the building's fragments remained buried, a forgotten artifact awaiting the revelation of its mysteries. Awful tension clogged the air as I dug up the foundations. The murmurs came back, leading me under the house and under the debris to a hidden room. I found an old chest with enigmatic symbols on its surface under the faint light of my flashlight. I opened the chest with nervous hands and saw a little, fancy key. The murmurs grew louder, pleading with me to retrieve the fountain's key. On it became evident how the mansion and the park were connected. The fountain served as a bridge between the living and the dead, providing access to the hereafter. The air crackled with expectation as I got closer to the fountain. The park was charged with a mysterious force that made the key shine in my hand. The murmurs intensified to the point of becoming like a ghostly chorus all around me. I inhaled deeply before inserting the key into the fountain's operating system. The water in the fountain burst into a brilliant display of ethereal lights, and everything around me shook. On the edges, shadows danced, changing into figures that popped out of the afterlife, and curse that had plagued the spirits for many years started to lift, vanishing like mist in the early morning light. The elderly woman's voice resounded in my head, thanking the spirits that had finally attained peace. But even as the paranormal energy subsided, a threatening aura persisted. I was completely chilled by the eerie voice that emerged from the murmurs. I heard it say, "You freed them, John," as the figure I had seen in the park emerged from the shadows. But every choice has consequences. The person vanished into the darkness before I could respond, leaving me alone in the now quiet park. The voices stopped, the curse was lifted, but my heart was still unsettled. What fate waited for me for interfering with otherworldly matters? Defiance gave way to daze as the city's frantic pace resumed. I was still plagued by the idea that I was being watched as I strolled down the well-known streets. The continual reminder that there was a thinner boundary between the living and the dead than I had ever thought came from the shadows that appeared to whisper my name. The whispers became louder as the evenings went on, and combined into a spooky chant that followed me around. The eerie voice reappeared, becoming a regular companion that reverberated throughout my head. Beyond just unlocking the secrets of the estate, the key had created a bridge between me and the restless ghosts. The once familiar metropolis turned into a labyrinth of shadows and rumors. I couldn't sleep while the eerie voice murmured stories of regret and grief. I came to the realization that my acts had unavoidable effects. The ghosts I had let free found comfort in my company, and their tales became ingrained in my memory. The whispers grew louder, offering glimpses into the lives of the spirits and the catastrophes that had consigned them to this world of mortals. Every evening turned into a voyage through the memories of the dead and a descent into the paranormal. I shared their suffering, their need for answers, and the weight of the decisions that had condemned them to an endless life of suffering. I went to the elderly woman who had led me here for advice, because I was troubled by the sounds that kept echoing in my head. She listened, her face serious, as I told her about the constant murmurs that now ruled my life. She said, her eyes full of deep sadness, "The spirits have chosen you as their conduit. To free yourself, you must help them find peace one last time." I set out on a mission to learn the ghost stories from the shadow people, determined to escape the haunting whispers. While I made my way through the complex webs of unresolved emotions that tied the deceased to the world of the living, each revelation brought with it a mixture of understanding and sadness. The unsettling voice in my head started to change as I read more of the ghost tales. It became a chorus of thanks instead of bearing the weight of regret and grief. The unceasing murmurs turned into a melancholy song as the once tormented souls sought comfort in telling their stories. The trip was difficult and emotionally taxing as I encountered the most sinister reaches of the paranormal. But as each spirit attained peace, the weight on my shoulders decreased. The eerie voice in my head changed into a reassuring presence, a reminder that redemption was still possible in the paranormal world. There appeared to be a collective sigh from the city as the tale of the last spirit came to light. The echoes of the dead were carried by the murmurs that had formerly followed me everywhere to dissolve into a soft wind. The key, which had previously been a source of both fear and hope, was now a relic from a voyage that crossed the line between life and death. However, the unsettling voice gave one last message, just as I believed I had come to a conclusion. It murmured, "Until we meet again, John," the words hanging in the air like a ghostly vow, once established by the ancient curse. The mystical connection had grown into an unbreakable relationship that was not limited by time or space. It felt like the voyage was far from ended as I stood by myself in the now peaceful park. Even if the whispers stopped, the mysteries surrounding the paranormal continued to exist in the shadows of the city's undiscovered nooks. The key lay in my hands, symbolizing a journey that transcended the boundaries between life and death, and serving as a reminder that certain stories, once started, never truly finish. It was one of those stormy nights that makes you cringe before you venture out into the fury. Thunder reverberated through the black sky as the rain beat down on the windows. Driving alone on a lonely road, I came across tall trees that appeared to be bending and creaking beneath the might of the wind. The unrelenting downpour made it difficult for me to see as I made my way along the narrow road. The only light I had was from the occasional lightning strike that lit up the twisted branches overhead. The soundtrack to my lonely journey was unsettling, with the radio crackling with static and the wind howling from time to time. I had no idea that this evening would turn into a terrifying story that would follow me around at all times. Driving along, I became aware of a faint glimmer off in the distance, a lonely petrol station acting as a shelter from the raging storm. I pulled into the dimly illuminated parking lot of the station, grateful for the promise of shelter. As I ran inside my car to escape the storm outside, the rain pounded on the roof. The fluorescent light inside the gas station flickered, creating long shadows on the linoleum floor. The smell of gasoline and moisture filled the air. An older attendant stood behind the desk, his eyes friendly yet tired. The name tag on him said Walter. "Storm caught you off guard, huh?" Walter smiled his knowing smile, as though the weather liked to mislead naive travelers. With gratitude for the sanctuary, I nodded. Indeed, it was unexpected. "Would you mind if I waited a little while here?" Walter pointed to a line of worn-out seats beside the window. "Son, please have a seat. Such storms have the power to completely upend the earth. It's best to hold off till it settles." I couldn't get rid of the sensation that I was being watched as I sank into one of the shabby seats. There was a certain uneasiness about the petrol station that I could feel seeping beneath my skin. I brushed it off as a result of the storm and made an effort to concentrate on the steady patter of rain on the window. The hours passed slowly, and the storm outside continued unabated. I chose to pass the time by perusing the gas station's tiny convenience shop area. I was browsing the shelves when I came across an odd object, a dusty, elaborate mirror hidden in a corner. It had a beautifully carved frame, and the glass had an air of mystery about it. I lifted the enigmatic mirror from its resting position, unable to resist its fascination. I felt a shiver go down my spine the instant I looked at my reflection. Something wasn't right. Something made me feel uneasy in the pit of my stomach. It took me a moment to realize that I wasn't the person in the mirror. Behind me, in the faint light of the petrol station, stood a figure. I spun around, expecting to face an intruder, and panic shot through me. However, the store was deserted, and the only noise was the distant roar of thunder. I turned to face the mirror again, half expecting the shadowy figure to remain there. Now my reflection was mine alone, which relieved me. I walked back to the chairs by the window, shaken but resolved not to let the strange encounter get to me. The gas station continued to serve as a haven from the onslaught storm outside, which showed no indications of letting up. I felt the uneasy sensation of being watched again as I sat in a dark corner. But this time, it was more than simply a passing feeling. I heard whispers just barely audible over the sound of the rain. I couldn't comprehend the language spoken by the muffled voices that appeared to reverberate throughout the gas station. Casting a quick glance around, I almost expected to see someone else lurking in the shadows. Apart from Walter, who was occupied at the counter, the gas station remained deserted. The murmurs continued, becoming louder and more forceful, as though they were calling me to solve a riddle concealed by the tempest. Prompted by an unexplainable urge, I cautiously spoke up to Walter. "Have you heard that?" Walter's eyes met mine, and a brief look of worry appeared on his face. "Yes, you have also heard them. When the storm is at its strongest, it occurs. They claim that the voices are those of persons who are torn between two realities and wish to be heard." My spine tingled as I took in Walter's words. It appeared that the gas station served as a hub for the living and the dead, a location where the lines separating reality and illusion were blurred. Though I was unable to fully comprehend the significance of what I was hearing, a part of me understood that the whispers contained the secret to a riddle that went beyond the stormy evening. The murmurs became more and more cohesive phrases over the course of the hours, with each syllable acting as a ghostly thread to weave a story of sorrow and loss. The voices described a woman as a soul caught in a state of non-existence. Her life was cut short by an unfortunate turn of events, as her story came to life like a ghostly tapestry. It appeared that the woman had died in a car crash on the same route I'd taken to get to the petrol station. Her death had been predicted by the storm's unrelenting wrath. Her last moments were vividly described in the whispers, complete with the terrible quiet that followed the blinding flash of headlights, the screech of tires, and other sounds. I had a great deal of empathy for the woman whose voice resounded throughout the gas station as I listened to the eerie story. The slight changes in the air and the flickering lights seemed to be her manifestation. She was desperately trying to get someone to notice her, to listen to her story, and maybe even to give her some small comfort. While the storm outside continued to rage, inside the petrol station, something else was happening. The urgency in the woman's whispers increased, as though time itself was disintegrating and the line separating the living from the dead was becoming less distinct. Walter pointed to the mirror I had come across before, his eyes full of profound understanding. He murmured, "The mirror," in a low voice that almost broke the murmurs. "It serves as a window and a conduit between the worlds. You have to face the reflection if you wish to assist her in finding serenity." I stepped up to the dusty mirror again, a little nervous but determined. I was led to the center of the enigma by the woman's voice, which reverberated within the glass. My surroundings became indistinct as my reflection touched hers, and I saw that I was standing on the road where the collision had happened, the wind screaming through the trees, with the rain falling hard. Long shadows on the wet asphalt were created by the headlights of an unseen automobile. The woman stood in the distance, the storm obscuring her figure. Her voice was like a ghostly cry for understanding as it reached out to me. Motivated by a silent connection established in the murmurs, I went up to the woman. The storm raged all around us, a chaotic symphony that reflected her inner agony. Lines dividing the living from the dead appeared to flex with every stride, and reality itself took on the appearance of a moving tapestry. Her features revealed themselves as I stood in front of her. They were those of an ethereal beauty carved with the agony of unfinished stories. She talked about broken dreams, lost loves, and the fervent need for resolution. It appeared that the storm had come to represent the unresolved feelings that bound her to the world of the living. During that fleeting instant, a decision was made. The woman's suffering was a beacon that cut through the curtain of reality, and her story cried out to be heard. I came to understand that the mirror served as more than simply a window. It was a threshold, a doorway connecting the living and the dead, where decisions made by one may affect the fate of the other. I gave a resolute nod and spoke in terms of empathy and comprehension. The stormy darkness gathered in on itself as the woman's figure wavered. Walter, the petrol station, and the murmurs vanished, and I was engulfed in a bright light. As the light faded, I was back in the petrol station, and the storm outside had subsided into a light drizzle. There was a profound silence in the air when the whispering stopped. Walter nodded in recognition, relief and thankfulness mixed together in his eyes. "You've accomplished something that very few people can," he said, a centuries-old accent. "You've bridged the gap between two worlds and given her the peace she sought." While I was processing the enormity of what had happened, Walter reached under the counter and pulled out a little, decorative key. He placed it in my palm as the metal glistened with a strange glow. "The key is a token of gratitude from those who found solace through you," he clarified. "Hold on to it and never forget that there are no hard and fast rules separating the living from the dead. Sometimes all it takes to hear the whispers and alter destiny is a willing heart." Walter led me back into the stormy night with those remarks. The road ahead extended into the unknown, and the rain had stopped. The petrol station served as a silent reminder of the paranormal, a monument to the secrets that can be found in the most unlikely places on Earth. The impression that the narrative was far from done persisted as I drove away, clutching the small, elegant key in my hand. The murmurs in the storm, the reflections in the mirror, and the key all served as markers for a voyage beyond the commonplace. The gas station was disappearing from my view via the rearview mirror. It carried secrets that reverberated throughout my thoughts, serving as a constant reminder that sometimes the lines separating the living from the dead are as flimsy as a dusty mirror reflection. It was just another typical day in the metropolis, with all the activity and noise of daily life seeming to overpower any hints of the paranormal. I had no idea that a seemingly innocent trip to the art exhibition would reveal a terrifying story that would follow me around for the rest of my life. Situated between tall skyscrapers, the gallery showcased an unusual and odd collection of modern art. I made the decision to spend my Saturday afternoon discovering the vivid world of colors and brushstrokes because I was intrigued by the prospect of original creativity. I was captivated to a specific picture as I browsed the show. It was an enthralling piece of work that had a presence all its own. The artwork showed a spooky, mist-covered countryside with twisted trees reaching up toward a moonlit sky. The artist's attention to detail was astounding, as each brushstroke brought the picture to life with a hauntingly vibrant quality. The artwork Eternal Shadows by Samuel Blackwood, a relatively unknown artist, was identified by the plaque next to it. I was shivering just reading the title, but the artwork was really gorgeous. I stood in front of it and could not take my eyes off the ethereal beauty that drew me in and made me want to go deeper. The minute I started reading Eternal Shadows, I started to feel uneasy in the pit of my stomach. The painting's mist appeared to flow, as though it were hiding secrets beyond the canvas. The moon created an ethereal brightness that suggested there was a world beyond the material, and the twisted trees told tales of old mysteries. I decided to find out if the artwork was still available because I couldn't help but be drawn to it. I was told that Eternal Shadows was not for sale by the young woman who worked at the gallery. She exuded a detached attitude. Nonetheless, it was on display to the general public for a brief period of time as a component of a unique exhibition honoring Samuel Blackwood's mysterious creations. I researched the background of the mysterious artist in an attempt to solve the enigma surrounding the eerie painting. It appeared that Samuel Blackwood was a loner who had developed a devoted fan base due to his ability to depict the paranormal on canvas. His artwork was the subject of rumors, with some people saying that the scenes it captured were doors to other worlds. I chose to go to a gallery event where Samuel Blackwood himself would be making a rare appearance because I was intrigued and a little scared. A buzz of excitement filled the air as people who were interested in art, as well as others who weren't, came together to see the enigmatic artist. Samuel Blackwood stood next to Eternal Shadows, his dark coat seeming to absorb the ambient light of the gallery. Beneath the fedora brim, his eyes betrayed a depth of experience that was not typical. There was a noticeable tension in the room as he talked about the motivation for his paintings and the creative process. The audience was riveted to every word. And with more interest than caution, I approached Samuel as the event came to an end. "What inspires your work?" I posed the question, pointing to the intriguing painting. Samuel's lips curled into an ironic smile. "The shadows that persist past the boundary of awareness. We catch glimpses of certain worlds in our dreams. These are realms that lie in between the known and the unknown. Eternal Shadows is only an image of such undiscovered worlds." I couldn't get rid of the unsettling feeling that there was more to the artwork than what first seemed, and his words struck a chord with that fact. Samuel leaned forward and murmured, "If you want the truth, go see the painting at midnight," as though sensing my eagerness. When the partition between worlds is the thinnest, the canvas comes to life. The invitation stayed in my mind, even though I couldn't believe a picture could come to life. Driven by a combination of doubt and an unconscious urge, I was standing in front of Eternal Shadows at midnight that night. The dull glow that suddenly filled the gallery gave it an eerie feel. I was staring at the painting's misty landscape, and there was an unbearable silence. The trees appeared to swing, their branches creating lengthy shadows that suggested lost worlds. A chill breeze touched my skin as I stood there in the stillness, the air growing heavier with an intensity that eluded description. I had an odd tug when the painting's mist started to flow, as though the canvas itself was inviting me to venture beyond of its boundaries. I tentatively reached out to touch the painting. As soon as my fingers touched the canvas, I was overcome by a strange feeling. As soon as I crossed the doorway, I was encircled by the same scene that had drawn my attention when I had first entered the museum. The shadows of the gnarled trees glistened in the moonlight as they towered over us. The trail that led further into the bizarre world was hidden by the mist that stuck to the earth. There was an eerie feeling in the air as I realized I had entered a realm where the rules of reality were broken. The air got colder, and the shadows seemed to have a life of their own as I continued exploring the mist-covered terrain. Sounds like whispers, like the low murmurs of gossip from the gallery, reverberated through the other world. The moon created an unearthly glow that filled the area with a ghostly light, and the trees groaned. And with every step I took, the terrain revealed itself to me like a maze and drew me more into the unknown. The whispers became more apparent, eventually building into a chorus of voices speaking in a beautiful but eerie language. Though I couldn't make out the words, I could feel the mix of sadness, longing, and a low-key desire for release. I came upon a rundown mansion in the middle of the bizarre world. its architecture reflecting the spooky beauty of the surroundings. A ghostly light flickered in the windows, and there was an underlying appeal. I entered the home, driven by curiosity and a growing realization that I had become a part of something beyond explanation. The inside was pitch black, with the moonlight peeking through damaged windows providing the only light. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, and ghostly motes of dust danced in the air. The mansion appeared to be a remnant from a bygone period stuck in time. The murmurs became more insistent as I made my way through the dimly lighted hallways, leading me to a stately chamber located in the center of the estate. With a groan, the door opened to reveal a chamber with a single elaborate mirror. It appeared as though the entire fabric of reality was shaky as the reflection within flickered. I was drawn to the mirror when I noticed a shadowy apparition standing next to me, reflecting my own ghostly form. A single voice emerged from the whispers, speaking with an eerie resonance. Bearer of the canvas, witness the echoes of the forgotten. I walked closer to the figure in the mirror as it beckoned, feeling inevitable. It appeared as though the mirror served as a portal between dimensions, a dividing line that connected the real world outside the painting to the otherworldly one inside. The environment changed as I met the spectral figure's eyes. The walls disappeared, and the lines dividing the mansion from the foggy surroundings vanished as well. Once more, I was standing beneath the gnarled trees, the ghostly world illuminated by the moon's ethereal glow. The person in the mirror, who was now standing next to me, told me of a curse that hung over the area, a curse originating from old customs and the longing of lost souls. The mansion, the trees, and the mist all served as reflections of a tragic past that yearned for closure. I came to see that the destiny of the spectral realm had been entwined with my path, which had been led by the whispers and the haunted canvas. I was urged to break the curse and untangle the sorrowful strands that linked the lost souls to their perpetual shadows by the person in the glass. I retraced my way through the misted countryside, determined to put closure to the ghostly realm. The murmurs lead me to an old altar tucked away under a twisted tree's shadow, the story of a ceremony gone wrong, and a desperate attempt to communicate with the supernatural gave rise to the curse, according to symbols carved into the stone. Using the information from the haunted canvas and the ghostly figure's advice, I carried out a ceremony to placate the agitated spirits. The symbols lit, the whispers crescendoed into a menacing tune, and the air crackled with energy. The gnarled trees appeared to sigh with relief as the mist started to clear. The land was bathed in blinding light as the ceremony came to a close. As the evening wore on, I discovered myself back in the gallery, facing eternal shadows. The canvas, which had once served as a doorway to the other world, now appeared to be a typical painting. Bathed in the cold, artificial light, the gallery bore little resemblance to the eerie scene that had captured my attention only hours before. The hush that had descended upon the area had also vanished, as had the whispering. There was no sign of Samuel Blackwood, his mysterious presence non-existent. The guests strolled through the gallery, casually appreciating the other artworks, unaware of the bizarre voyage I had just made. In front of eternal shadows, I could only ask myself one question. Was the spectral realm just a creation of my imagination, the result of a haunted canvas and the mystique of the artist? The key I was holding, a keepsake from the dreamlike excursion, appeared to burn with an unearthly warmth, proving that the phantom realm was real. Now lost in her own world, the gallery attendant made no attempt to acknowledge the amazing events that had taken place. It appeared as though the eerie canvas had returned to being just a painting, with Samuel Blackwood's brushstrokes concealing its mysteries. The night air felt clean and normal as I walked out of the gallery. There was no sign of the ghostly terrain I had entered in the cityscape with its tall skyscrapers and busy streets. Nevertheless, the key in my pocket acted as a silent prompt, a symbol that disregarded the lines separating the known from the unknown. I couldn't get the story Eternal Shadows out of my head. It was a story that went beyond the canvas and the paranormal. The unexplained riddles and unanswered questions lingered with me as I left the exhibition, a sobering reminder that, occasionally, the lines separating the real world from the paranormal are as flimsy as the painting that depicts their essence.